Hey, it's Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Thursday. It is November 17th. This will be our chart lesson for the day, and this will wrap it up for the week. No chart lessons on Fridays. Um, in the end, we had a trend up all day. Early on this morning, when I first came in, it looked like it was going to be a range day. That is a really tight range, though, maybe even tighter than what we've seen lately. So it was nice to get a little movement today. Once we broke higher here, of course, oops, didn't mean to grab that one. But once we broke higher here, you would expect at least a measured move. Move that up, and that's exactly where we went to before we turned down. Um, and then we bounced again, and from there we went higher. And at that point, I would draw a leg like so. And just in case we continued higher, I'd look for a measured move, and lo and behold, exact to the tick measured move on leg two. So this is just a two-legged move up. Um, but that's how I usually get my measured moves. I would also measure this leg here, and once we started higher, use that one too. And you see we got to that measured move and tried to correct, but we went higher. But that was because this leg really won out down here. It was that's a perfect measured move to the tick. So it doesn't get any better than that for a target. But early on, again, I was playing it as a range, and you just had to kind of sit and be patient here. Let me back out a little bit, and we'll talk about these trades, and we'll wrap up our week. And you had to be really patient. This is one of those days where you just kind of had to sit here today and just be patient because there just wasn't a whole lot happening. Um, wasn't much happening at all. But early on, you had this bounce. When I came in, prices were right in here somewhere, but we were moving down, and we got this. I tell you, it was really tempting to go long here. There's no break here, so it's a first entry on this chart. But on a hidden chart, on a smaller time frame, there's probably a second entry there. It's not a perfect signal bar, but that's fairly bullish, and it is a bounce. It's a double test of the original low here. So this was really tempting. But if you went long here, you see what would have happened? You would have lost. So, but if you waited on the second entry and then you got another bounce right here and a big bullish bar, I like going long there. And if you caught that one move, you would have caught a runner on that if you're trying to get runners. Somebody asked me that today, and I get that question occasionally. How many of your runners are successful? And generally, it's going to be right around 50%, maybe less, 40 to 50% in there. But a lot of times on range days, I will not use runners unless I get a failed break lower. Like right here, I'd consider this a failed break lower if there was a setup. If there wasn't, um, this one didn't go lower than the original low there, but it did go lower than that one. So maybe on this one like this. But generally what I'm looking for is a sure range that's working across here, and suddenly you break below and you get a nice bullish reversal bar that's outside the range. A lot of times you will catch the low or the high of the day when you catch those failed breakouts, just like this one turned out to be the low of the day here. And if you could catch one there, you can ride it all the way to the top. When you had two measured legs up, I'd probably exit whether the market was done yet or not. And so hopefully that answers your question. I know that's not a specific answer, but that's as close as I can give you on that. And if you try to pick and choose when to use runners, you'll probably get it wrong every time. Um, when you don't use them, you'll wish you had them, and when you do use them, you'll wish you hadn't them. So generally, I use them on every trade except a tight range, and then I'll probably skip them. And the only time I really try to use them on a tight range like this is on a failed break low, or if I think I might catch the low or high of the day. So, but anyway, second entry long there, and if you could caught that one trade with a runner, probably done for the day. Um, there's a failed second entry short there, but it was right into that. And the way I got this trend line was I actually had it off these first couple of swings first and drug it down, continued to fit all the way. And so I was a little bit leery entering anywhere up through here right into that upper trend line. So I wanted to wait till it comes back. And you get a second entry long right here, confirming your trend line, a bounce off the trend line and the EMA, which gives it, which really gives it additional merit because it's Confluence right there. And it's a really small bar. It's more of a neutral bar, so that's the reason I made it green. If this would have been a nice blue bar, a nice signal bar, I would have made it blue. But it's a little bit risky because it's not a perfect bar. It does tick one tick lower there, so it feels like a little failed break lower below. You can see that support across there. But it's not lower than that low, so it's really, I'm not really going to treat that like a failed break lower. If I had, I'd probably give that a blue one anyway. But it's a real small bar, so it's low risk. So it turns out to be a good trade, but I'm only going to give it a green. And then, of course, we made our measured leg. When you went higher from here, I would have measured between my distance here on using the closes, and I would have looked for a measured move there. And we got that perfect again, and then we start turning down. Well, you want to wait for a reversal pattern or a trap or something, and notice you got a new high, pull back first entry long, pull back second entry long. This one is real close to being green, but I still like it red because of the measured move and the fact that we're turned down. And notice how we turn down off this measured move up here versus off the upper trend channel. That's telling you that this is probably what's in play. And since there's a trap there, I like that one. Generally, I'd like for it to already be through the EMA, but it does push down and come back, and it closes within that trend line once again. So I'm looking for prices to come back here and maybe all the way back to here. And so that turns out to be it actually went higher one more time. It's tempting to go short right there, and you probably could have, but when it went higher and then couldn't break out lower there, I felt like it was better to wait and see, and then all of a sudden it tries to go higher again and fails. So I like going short there. And this one moved pretty quickly, and it did get back below. This turns out this is a midline. You don't really know that for sure, but you got a good idea. And when this bounced here, actually before that, I actually drew this line up here off these first two swings. I originally had it a little steeper, so we'd actually pushed on through it right there, but I was looking for something to bounce in this area, and once it did, I changed my trend line a little bit, and that gave me my first two swings here. You really still didn't need anything other than the range at this point, but it helps to know this is here for your midline and for where your target might be up here. But again, you really didn't need it if you just measured this target. Once we were going higher, you knew what your target was. So a couple of different reasons. When you get to the same conclusion more than one way, you want to pay attention to that. So, but anyway, we bounce here, and we just start going sideways. This was really a failed second entry short here, and so I like that one going long on a break above it, but it pulls back and then it turns higher again. By the time this happened, you got a lot of overlap there into that EMA, so you might not have wanted to add on here, but I like entering there just because it's tried to go lower multiple times, and we already had a close outside and new low here, so there's a good chance we're headed back up here again. So it does break out, it pulls back, but you don't get a very good signal bar, so I don't want to, no entering again. That's going to be it on that one. And then you're coming back here, you get a close outside, move to a new low. And once again, I found this trend line by drawing this line off these highs here. and then just bringing it over to here. Originally I had it right on the closes, and that still really fits. I just adjusted a little bit later on when this green was here, and notice that little gap right there. That'll happen a lot. Prices will gap over uh, these trend lines. But anyway, that's a second entry long right there. It's really not a second entry long. Your second entry long, pull back first entry, pull back second entry. But that's really like one leg, a correction, and a second leg. So, but I just like that reversal off the EMA with that big bullish bar. Just go along there. You got room to get out. And this one takes off again. And notice this is a new swing low. It's lower than that one. So your first entry short, second entry short, it fails. And so I like going long again. This one is almost, you could almost make this one green because there is a lot of overlap with doji in there. These two are not really dojis. This one, it's close. They're forms of dojis, but they're not closing. But it still looks like congestion there. So you got to be careful with this one. You might let it break higher and drop a limit order back in here, and it would have come back even here and filled you and then gone higher. Because what will happen a lot of times is it reaches that high and it turns down and you get stopped out. So you got to be careful with that one. The only reason I liked it is because it was a trap. It meets our reversal pattern of the failed second entry short. So I left it for that reason. I don't like this one, even though it's a form of a breakout pullback either. But we're getting close to our measured move. And then we made a measured move, and look what happens. You pull back first entry long, pull back second entry long, and it turns down. Big bearish bar. It went higher and then turned and went right out the other side all in one bar. You could have actually went short, had a stop already there, or you could have dropped one below here. You might have missed it if you weren't already in place when it started turning down, because it does. Notice how it skips over there and just keeps going. So you may not have gotten filled on that with a limit order. Hopefully you could have, but you may not have. And now we got a trend line working down there, and there's 3 swings there, and that really confirms that trend line too. And then we bounce here. This is really more sideways. So notice your new high, first entry long, second entry. It doesn't break higher, but this is like a multiple test of this area across here. It's the first break, close outside this trend line. So we're probably heading back down to here and maybe back down to here. And if this trend channel's right, at least back down to here. So I like going short right there. And it's really just a double test of this double top. And then we make a new low, pull back first entry, pull back second entry. We do get outside this the EMA and the trend line slightly. We've already had a break with a couple of legs down that look pretty close to being a measured leg. There's your first leg down. There's your second. We actually overshot that a little bit. So, but this is a second entry short with a big bearish bar here. And so I like that one just in case we end up coming back down here. It's good for a scalp. It doesn't go any further. And notice the little short trap here. You got a new low, first entry short, second entry short. It's not quite the close, so you might have considered going long there. I'm going to make it green just because it's so late in the day, but you see it would have been a nice trade, and technically it's still within our 2 o'clock hour. So, I mean, really, you could make that one blue. I mean, I'll just go ahead and make it blue. I'd probably be leery of it that late in the day, but it fits our rules and it's a good setup and it would have worked. So yeah, not a lot of trades today, a little bit slower, even though we had a nice trend, but there were a couple of nice moves here. And once we started trending, it was pretty easy to find your target, either by the trend line, just drawing it off those highs, or by getting your measured leg here. You might have even done this one more time and moved it up. You see, we didn't quite make that one though. So, but sometimes that will work as well if you're kind of stair-stepping up like that. So, But yeah, not much else we can talk about today. I did want to share something else with you. I saved this. Let me find this. And I know a lot of times people like it when I share success stories, but this gentleman sent me an email. He sent me this a week or so ago, and I've been meaning to read it, and I just didn't get a chance. But I'll read it here, just so you can see that some people have success. But it says, "Hey Mac, just want to tell you a quick story. I started trading in 2009 at the age of 35. I'd never traded a stock or future in my entire life. I lost consistently for years and years. It was difficult. It was like the universe was kicking me in the gut over and over again. It was depressing. I was lost. For some reason, though, I never stopped. My family urged me to stop every day. How many of you have heard that before? I know I heard that a lot too. To this day, it's a major source of stress for my family. The last month, though, and even the last couple of weeks, my trading has turned a corner. I took one winner in live today and four winners in sim. My game plan is that I target one winner and then move to sim and practice. My best friend and I trade with your style. He's in California and I'm in New Jersey. He was at his wits' ends a couple years ago also when we discovered you in price action trading. We were both depressed and honestly at the lowest point of our lives. Since learning from you, everything has changed. We have been 23 and 3 in our last 26 trades. Today would have been an impossible day for us a couple of years ago. Today we navigated it like a pro. We'll both be full-time traders in a very short period of time, and we slowly add contracts and maintain our game plan. Just wanted to give you a thanks. Not being, it just goes on, and I don't, I'm not, don't want to toot my horn. This is not about me. I read this um, to show you that there's people that are having success. So give you something to think about and shoot for. I think there was one other one here that I got recently too. Yeah, this one was just real quick. It's 6 points before 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. Thanks. And I wanted to say I had one more. Well, I can't find it now. If I find it, I'll read it next time. But yeah, I just, I know that people like to hear those stories sometimes, and just gives other people hope that are out there struggling, and it seems like it's difficult, and it is difficult. But again, the key is always putting in the time and the effort. If you think you're just going to read a price action manual and or watch a few of these videos and learn this, you're sadly mistaken. I mean, even once you kind of have the rules down, you still need that experience and that screen time, and you really have to study your charts. I can't tell you how many times people tell me, I heard you say study my charts 100 times, and I just never took it serious, and I never had success. And then suddenly, I knew I was at my wits' end. I was at my last straw, so I started studying my chart, and suddenly, boom, everything just looks totally different now, and it suddenly makes sense. So make sure you hear this part when I say the key to getting better is not coming in here and just trading every day and then walk away at the end of the day. The key to getting better is coming in here trading and then going back at the end of the day and studying your trades. And then after that, just study the chart itself. Look for where all the big moves originate from and figure out why. And look where the big moves came from. This was a big move from here. That was off the low support of a range. Look where this big move came from. That was off a key entry point. You may or may not have found that by drawing it off the highs, but if you did, it still happened from off a key entry point. Here's another one. Key entry point, trend line, EMA, key entry point. You start working down, where do your big moves finally come from? Off your key entry points, your EMA and your trend line. And then we bounce down here, another big move generates from there. Where's that coming from? That's coming from right off this key entry point, this trend line. You could have found it off these first two swings and drug it down. You may not have known exactly because you may not have got the angle exactly right, but you'd have been close. And look, once we're going up, where did this big move come from right here? Off of this trend line that, again, you could find off the highs. And then where does the big move down come from? Starts off the key entry point, the upper trend channel line. And then you're coming down and your big moves are coming off the trend line. And then where does it big move from here start from? Key entry point. So where are the key entry points? Important support and resistance. That's horizontal. And all these trend lines are slanted or angled support and resistance lines. And look what prices do. They bounce back and forth between those levels. So make sure you understand that, because that is the key to everything. And that's why it's so important to find these trend lines and these trend channels. And people that tell you that trend lines don't do it, or you can't find them until the end of the day, don't listen to them. Trust me, I've shown many times that it can be found early. And if you go look at my midday charts that come out sometime around 9, on average around 9:30 every day, you'll see me showing you these lines early in the day, and they come back into play later in the day. Occasionally I have to adjust them a little bit, but that's part of it. But you still get in the right vicinity. And a lot of times you never have to touch them again the rest of the day. You can have them in place by 9 o'clock in the morning, and they come into play all the rest of the day. So make sure you understand that. But I'm going to wrap it up. We're done for the week. Hope everybody has a great weekend. We'll be back again next week to do it all over again. This is Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.